Shades of the past, nightly whispers. In a remote, nearly forgotten town's outskirts, an age-old house stood shrouded deep within towering pines' gloom. Dan and his comrades, Ben, Luke, and Ali, dared to visit this long-abandoned dwelling that belonged to Dan's father. A weekend they envisioned filled with camaraderie and thrill would soon morph into a chilling descent into the supernatural's depths. Their journey began under a harsh summer sun that shrank back as they trekked deeper into the dense woodland. An air of unease settled around them, with the birds' lively chatter replaced by an uncanny silence, occasionally punctuated by rustling leaves and the groaning of ancient branches. Despite the unsettling atmosphere, the ominous silhouette of the neglected house drew them onward. This old wooden structure, a relic of bygone years, seemed untouched by time. Its blank windows concealed the darkness within. A strangely new door, contrasting with the decay around it, captured their attention. From the first night, a string of spine-chilling experiences welcomed them. Ghostly whispers fluttered on the breeze, echoing footsteps resonated in the empty hallways, and shadows danced in the corners of their eyes. All these strange occurrences seemed to spring from behind that enigmatic door. As the paranormal activity intensified, they found themselves facing apparitions that exuded profound sadness. A weeping woman, spectral and sorrowful, kept her vigil by the fireplace. A lost child wandered the corridors in a never-ending search for his mother. The most harrowing sight was a male figure writhing in anguish, his wails piercing the quiet night. Eager to understand these eerie incidents, they delved deeper into the house's secrets. A concealed attic unveiled a dusty journal, its pages discolored with age. It was the original homeowner's diary that revealed the terrifying truth about the woods, a community of settlers that disappeared under unexplained circumstances. The settlers, once a prosperous group of loggers and gold prospectors, were now no more than spectral inhabitants of the house, trapped behind the strange door. Each haunting encounter reflected a tragic replay of their past, their cries of anguish echoing across centuries. The chilling realization transformed their adventurous weekend into a horror-filled saga. They were living amongst echoes of the dead, witnesses to a century-old tragedy in a house forgotten by time. The horrifying truth haunted their stay, turning every moment in the house into a reminder of its tragic past. Their adventure had resurrected the long-forgotten stories, bringing them face to face with history. Each gust of wind now whispered tales of sorrow, each shadow held a memory of an unfinished life, and the house in the woods stood as a silent testament to the haunting legacy of a once thriving community. The Room of Unspoken Terror. My grandfather was a formidable man, both in character and physique. He often bragged about his strength and courage, but the fear I saw in his eyes that one dreadful night was enough to mute his boasts forever. After my grandmother passed away, he chose not to have a dedicated bedroom in our family home. On his infrequent visits, we'd offer up our rooms for his comfort, and I would sleep in the drawing room. This ritual took a spine-chilling turn on a specific visit. One particular evening, grandfather was expected, but he missed his usual train. Our house was prepared for his arrival, with my bed already set up in the drawing room, awaiting his occupancy. But when the 8 p.m. train came and went without him, we presumed he'd been detained and would arrive the following day. However, fortune had a cruel sense of humor that night. Grandfather, against our expectations, arrived on the 11 p.m. train. The house was silent, everyone tucked away in their beds. Instead of waking me up, grandfather insisted on occupying my pre-prepared bed in the drawing room. But here's the part that sent chills down my spine. He decided to move his bed to one of the side rooms. In hindsight, I wish he hadn't. When morning came, we decided to wake grandfather, thinking he'd had ample rest. The door to the side room was closed, but not bolted. We gently pushed it open and were met with a horrifying sight. Grandfather lay on the bed, panting heavily, his eyes wide with unspoken terror. His body was on fire with fever. As we touched him, he spoke in a hoarse whisper, pleading us not to open the windows or it would come in. Before we could ask what it was, he fainted, The doctor was summoned, and although his medication reduced the fever temporarily, grandfather's condition didn't improve. Within 24 hours, he was taken from us, leaving behind a bone-chilling tale unfinished and an eerie mystery shrouding that side room. What had he seen through those windows? What horror had turned a robust man into a victim of fear? We could only speculate, for nobody dared to spend a night in that room after that incident. A grim reminder of the horrifying ordeal grandfather experienced, the ordeal that silenced his boasts, ended his life, and left us with an enigma that haunts us till this day. Chilling shadows of the Canadian wilderness. In the year 1875, deep within the untamed wilderness of Canada, lived an elderly trapper named Jacques Dupont. He resided in a shabby wooden cabin near the shadowy banks of the Ottawa River, where he eked out a living from the bounty of the land. Dupont was known in the nearby settlement of Bytown for his impressive skills, but more for his unnerving tales of the macabre, handed down through generations. Many dismissed him as a senile man with an overactive imagination, but he always maintained the solemn truth of his stories. However, no one had truly known the dark reality behind his tales until the disappearance of young James Mackenzie. James, an ambitious lad from Bytown, was inspired by the tales of wilderness and adventure. He decided to set off into the woods against the wise warnings of Dupont. Armed with nothing but his father's rusty hunting rifle and blind bravado, he marched on towards his doom. One cold, windy night, Dupont noticed a dim light flickering in the dense forest. He squinted through the foggy window pane and saw what seemed to be a torchlight bobbing up and down. Intrigued and cautious, Dupont snatched his fur coat and stepped outside, following the strange glow. The weather was ruthless, a raging blizzard obscuring the way, but the light was just bright enough for Dupont to keep track. As he ventured deeper, he felt a shiver of fear creep up his spine. The eeriness of the night coupled with the silence of the woods was unsettling. The light led him to a clearing where he found James, pale and terrified, surrounded by dark figures in the forest's shadows. Dupont quickly grabbed James and attempted to lead him away from the spectral figures, but it was too late. The figures descended upon them, their eerie cries reverberating through the frosty night. Dupont fired his seasoned rifle at them, but the bullets appeared to glide harmlessly through their ghostly forms. Their icy, phantom-like hands reached out to touch James, who let out a blood-curdling scream before collapsing. Dupont managed to drag James back to his cabin, but the boy was forever changed. His once bright eyes were now hollow and distant, his complexion ashen. He barely spoke, and when he did, he muttered about the shadowy figures, the eyes in the woods, the voices whispering in the wind. Word of the incident spread like wildfire throughout Bytown. The once dismissed tales of Jacques Dupont were now regarded with fear and trepidation. Parents warned their children about venturing too deep into the woods, and even the bravest hunters stayed clear of the haunted clearing. The ghostly figures, the haunted woods, and the chilling events of that night turned into a gruesome tale told in hushed voices. Fear lurked within the heart of Bytown and the surrounding wilderness, forever marking the place with a chilling reminder of the horrifying mystery that was the night in the Ottawa woods. The ghost of the abandoned Château. In the late 18th century France, within the enigmatic heart of Paris, there stood an imposing mansion, seemingly untouched by the passage of time. Its large, once vibrant windows were obscured by layers of grime and dust. Its stone facade was cloaked in an eerie silence that echoed tales of desolation and dread. For years it lay abandoned, a silent witness to the city's underbelly, shunned by its residents as if cursed. Legend had it that once, this mansion was a bustling epicenter of lavish balls and refined galas. The laughter of children resonated through its opulent halls, young men jousted in the vast gardens, and harmonious music echoed across its elaborate chambers. However, the merry life within slowly wilted, drowned by an ominous air of despair and inexplicable illnesses that claimed the inhabitants one by one, driving them away, leaving the mansion eerily desolate. At the heart of Parisian society, the mansion's bleak condition was a puzzle, until whispers of a haunting truth found their way to light. Many claimed to have heard the echoing clink of chains in the dead of the night, coming from the forsaken mansion. The first to have experienced this uncanny occurrence was a little girl, too petrified even to call her maid, as the clinking gradually grew louder, seemingly approaching her before receding into the distance. The eerie apparition soon took form. Late into the witching hours, the figure of an old man, as gaunt as a skeleton and with a white beard cascading down his chest, appeared. Shackles bound his wrists and ankles, rattling ominously as he moved. His ghostly presence filled the house with an air of death, draining the life from its dwellers until they could stand it no longer, fleeing from the spectral terror and leaving the mansion abandoned. The tale of the haunted mansion reached the ears of a renowned French philosopher, René d'Alembert, visiting Paris. Intrigued by the unreasonably low price for such a grand mansion and intrigued by its infamous reputation, d'Alembert decided to stay a night within its gloomy walls, determined to unravel the mystery of the specter. As dusk turned into pitch-black night, d'Alembert ordered his servant to set up a small desk with a lamp and parchment in the grand hall and dismissed him. Alone in the flickering light of the lone lamp, he began to pen down his thoughts, pushing away the growing unease. Soon, the sound of clanking chains reached his ears, growing louder and closer, until the figure of the old man materialized beside him, beckoning him. Remaining steadfast, d'Alembert gestured to the apparition to wait until he finished his writings. Once done, he followed the specter through the echoing halls of the mansion, towards the courtyard, where the ghost suddenly vanished. D'Alembert marked the spot with a small pile of stones and returned to his quarters, where he managed to find rest until dawn. In the morning light, d'Alembert sought out a local magistrate, and together they had the marked spot in the courtyard excavated. To their chilling realization, the diggers unearthed a skeleton, bound in rusty ancient chains. The identity of the remains was unknown, their story lost in time, yet their discovery brought about a closure to the spectral happenings. The bones were given a solemn public burial, the cost of which was taken up by the city. With the ghostly chains silenced, the mansion's eerie dread ceased. Its rooms once again echoed with life as the owners moved back in, leaving behind the haunting legacy of the phantom old man. To this day, the chilling tale of the haunted mansion circulates in hushed whispers among the Parisians. As one steps into the mansion, they are met not with the echoing clatter of spectral chains, but with the resonant hum of life returning to its grand halls and magnificent chambers. Still, on certain nights when the moon hides behind the dark clouds and the wind howls eerily through the narrow lanes of Paris, people passing by the mansion shudder, as if a cold breath from the past has momentarily brushed against their faces. The mansion stands tall, a quiet reminder of its spectral past, an enigma wrapped in layers of time, unspoken histories, and lingering echoes of ghostly chains. The spectral old man with his long, flowing white beard and chilling shackles no longer haunts the premises, his mysterious presence buried alongside his unearthed remains. However, his legend, woven into the very stones of the mansion, continues to cast a lingering shadow, adding a thrilling chill to the grandeur of the mansion. Those brave enough to venture into its antiquated halls at night still feel a prickling sensation at the nape of their necks, an uncanny sense of being watched. Some swear to have seen an apparition in the periphery of their vision, a fleeting image of an old man, chained and spectral. These tales keep alive the haunting legacy of the mansion, adding an eerie allure to its majestic splendor.